So they were subcontracting. In fact, they were subcontracting to someone who was subcontracting to someone who subcontracted us. So as we grew and evolved, two things happened. One, we wanted to climb up the food chain. Why be the fourth or fifth one if we're doing the job? And as reputation grew, we started being the number 2 or 3. You'll never be, well, not at that point. You're not going to compete with IBM's brand, but you can be the go-to guy after. The second thing that happened is that we wanted to build a better, smarter business model. And, well, essentially we sat down and we said, let's look at our hacking simulations and then our incident response and the forensics that we're doing around the world. And really, the biggest company names you can think of in the world to the smallest, most insignificant ones. We had, well, about 65 or 70 hacks under our belt at that point. Another about 50 or 60 incident response for real companies. We took all that together and said, let's understand what's the common denominator here. What happened that these companies get hit? And as a footnote, at that time when we were already about 65 hacking simulations, we had never failed a hack simulation. Now don't think state level capabilities. Think private company investing maybe $1,000 in a hack. Never failed. And we're talking about companies that have, some of them have tens and tens of millions of dollars of cybersecurity budgets annually. And $1,000 attacks flies right by. So we sat down and said, okay, why are all our hacks succeeding? I mean, we'd like to pat ourselves on the back, but that's not because of that. Why are all the clients we're doing IR for, incident response, why did the incident happen? And no matter how much we sliced and diced it, there wasn't one specific thing that you could put your finger on. Some had process and procedure problems, some had technology problems, some had lack of skills, some had the right technology but didn't configure it, some had the wrong technology in the wrong places. There was a wide variety of issues. What we did find was that 85% of those clients had an operational SOC, which is a security operations center. So they were paying 7 figures a year to all the big names in the world, some small names we hadn't heard of, to essentially run all their security operations center. And not a one of them ever in one of our attacks or in the incidents we investigated had identified or blocked an attack. So that popped up significantly as a question to look into. I think if you put all of them together, we were looking at 120, 130 cases. Statistically speaking, if 130 attacks happened to a wide variety of clients, and not one of them, their SOC identified it, it's statistically solid enough to say SOCs don't work. It's a fact. It's not a theory that we're building. It's just a fact. We've been the one attacking 65 out of the 120. We've investigated the other 50. SOCs varied from well-known names. Even the technology they used to deploy the SOCs varied. There wasn't anything common about any of them except the fact none of them worked at all. It's not that they worked less or more. I mean, there was an incident, it finished, it ended, and we did what we wanted to do, got out, left, and still we haven't been identified yet. I'm not even talking about blocked or disturbed. That's a colossal failure for a SOC. A SOC can say, look, I identified an incident but didn't have what it took to stop it. That's mediumly okay. Nothing. Statistically speaking, we were sound enough to say, you know what? We identified something that really, really doesn't work in the market, and its core. SOC is not just a core, it's the core element in security, in cybersecurity, at least for a private sector company. We sat down and we said, okay, could we design and operate a SOC from an offensive perspective and from a post-mortem investigative perspective? Could we design and operate a SOC that would catch people like us or people like we were investigating in incident responses? Obviously, we ended up with the answer that yes, we can. We spent a lot of time and a lot of analysis, a lot of money and a lot of footwork to understand what it was that the SOCs were missing, what we did that wasn't being caught, and how it could have been caught if they were doing it differently, if they were looking at different places, if they were asking different questions. if they had a certain skill set that could put all that together and reach a conclusion. And of course, the cherry on top, if they knew what to do with all of that in real time and respond accordingly. And that's where we built our core service, which is SOC as a service. We call it CYREBRO. That's how CYREBRO came to life and how CyberHat became what we like to call the world's first smart SOC. The first SOC designed, operated, and managed by people with truly offensive and post-mortem investigative experience. It's not based on meeting compliance issues. It does meet compliance issues. CyberHat itself is ISO compliant and GDPR, and compliance is important, but it cannot be the lead when you structure security, which is when you look at most of the other cases. So that's us, and that's how we came to life.